who are tuning in for the first time, I wanted to say a big welcome. Those who have come back, and I know often many of you watch these after they are streamed live, and I just wanted to say it's been so wonderful to see how many people are watching these conversations. And for those who I haven't met, who don't know me, my name is Tyran Parke, and I am the executive producer of the Australian Musical Theatre Festival. It's something that I get excited about every time I say that. The Australian Musical Theatre Festival had one festival, and it was glorious last year. I went there as a performer myself, and little did I know I'd become so involved and invested in the festival, but it certainly caught my attention as being something that was really, really magical, and happens over 5 days next year. So we missed this year because, as you probably know, there's a lot going on in 2020 that prevented us going outside, but really excited to be putting the program together for next year, the next year's festival. And these conversations are really conversations about musical theatre to keep us engaged as we move towards that announcement of that program, and to give people a bit of a sense of what they might come to learn and what the conversation is around musical theatre. I want to take a moment, of course, to just respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am currently on, the Boonwurrung and Wurundjeri people of the Eastern Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, as well as those traditional and ongoing custodians of La Turitsa. I, as some of you might know, live a bit of a crazy life, and I just got off the phone from an interview about something else, and I sit down ready to introduce these two wonderful women who I know and love, and who are remarkable performers and people. And whenever I get to just remind myself about this acknowledgement of country and the importance of this, it grounds me. It reminds me that sovereignty was never ceded. It reminds me, as I go to talk about culture, music, singing, storytelling, that the traditional owners of this land and of the lands that we are all on in this nation have told their stories and danced their dances and sung their songs for many thousands of years before we were here. And it always humbles me to remember that before I continue talking about those very things. Today, I'm quite delighted. So for some of you who were here at the end of, you may recall last week when we had Anne Wood and Natalie O'Donnell, the stars from Mamma Mia, together. We also had a huge storm. So it was our first internet challenge, which was successfully, I think, navigated through. And you may recall at the end of the program, I announced that we were going to push the envelope further and have 3 guests this week. One of our guests, Jared Draper, who is a fantastic young performer, WAPA graduate, indigenous man, is currently rehearsing Rent for the Sydney Opera House, and he couldn't be here. So it's just me and these remarkable 2 women who are here to talk to you today and to share some stories, and of course some songs as well. Both of these women I have known, in the rehearsal room or in the kind of teaching space, and both really inspire me. Both have wonderful stories about how they are contributing to musical theatre, and it's a wonderful way to kind of talk to them about being what it is to be a First Nations performer in this country and to be pursuing musical theatre, and where we think we might be going in that. 2020 has certainly opened our eyes to many things, and I know myself, I've learnt about certain things that I was unaware of until this year. And it's been a hard year for many people, but it has been an eye-opening year, and we've learnt lessons that are incredibly important, and incredibly important to remember as we step back out of our homes. I'm in Melbourne, so stepping out of our homes and back into the world. So I would love to introduce Naarah and Brittanie Shipway. Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Brittanie.
It's so lovely, and I don't know when the last time you two saw each other as well, but this platform that we use, they are literally called Backstage. So they've been backstage together, waiting to come on stage and be with us here today. When did you two last see each other?
March. It's been a long time.
I think in an airport.
Yeah, very strange.
And that was when things started to just really shift. And so I have so many things to ask both of you, and I know that you're from, beaming in right now from various parts of Australia. But what was the occasion? How did you meet, and what was this this union? How did this occur? Naarah, I might start with you. What was this about?
How did I meet Brittanie? Brittanie and we met earlier this year in January at auditions for the Sapphires, which is an incredible Yorta Yorta story, an Indigenous musical, one of the few but many that is going to be very soon, thanks to Brittanie and many other incredible Indigenous writers around Australia. But the Sapphires is an incredible Indigenous story. The Yorta Yorta mob, and Brittanie and I had the opportunity to be a part of it and play those characters and tell those stories for what was meant to be 170 shows this year. We did 5. It was a bit sad, and I didn't actually think the last time I saw Brittanie, they'd given us an hour's notice, not even that we were driving to the airport instead of to our Brisbane show that night. And we were just like, what? Where am I going? What do we do? Because we had no idea that, what the world was going to be. So nice to see you, Britt.
Yeah. So Brittanie, did when you were performing in the Sapphires, and I think most of us know it from the film, when you were performing in it and it was supposed to have this long run, did you get how did you get a sense that it was coming to an end? Like what with the virus kind of all around us, what was the first time that because you'd only just opened, what was that experience like, letting go of it?
Well, I knew that it was coming. Everybody was starting to pull their shows. We were one of the last, and we were in Queensland, which was a little bit safer for a little bit longer. But yeah, by the 4th show, I said to the girls, I don't know if we'll be going on for much longer, and we hit the 5th one, and that was it. So it was sad, but we were so hopeful. Nobody knew what to expect. We thought that we'd be back on the road by June, and we were mourning that length of time. But there's always silver linings, and I think that there's not a lot of time or room for performers or artists in general to have space to breathe and not always feel like they're competing. So because the whole industry went quiet for a little bit, it gave us a chance to write or get back to ourselves or get back to feeling human again, because there's so much pressure that comes with being a performer. It was nice to escape that for a little while. So silver linings.
Of course, always. I mean, I remember, going into, I was supposed to be doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and then saying it's okay because you're in May, so you'll be okay by then. This was March, and we've only just in Melbourne kind of ventured outside in the last couple of weeks. So little did we know. Is it hard, Naarah? Is it hard, what do you do with that energy? You've rehearsed, you've got on stage, you've had your opening night, you're about to start this tour. What do you do when you find yourself back in Hobart? I expect that's where you came back to. What do you do with that energy? Where do you start?
Yeah, well, actually, I moved to Melbourne in February, which didn't go well. And now 90% of the stuff I own is in Melbourne, which is really annoying. So that was what was really hard for me when we found out. We had a group little circle meeting for that last day in Maryborough. I was always saying it wrong, so apologies if I said that wrong, people of Queensland.
Maryborough.
Maryborough, yes. Pronunciations are important, so I'm so sorry. But I was like, they gave us an hour's notice, and I was like, do I go to Hobart or do I go to Melbourne? And the people I live with in Melbourne are older, and I had just been in Canada and Arizona and touring, obviously Queensland, and full-time rehearsals in Melbourne. There was every chance, I think, on that day that I was thinking that I could have coronavirus. And if I came back to Melbourne and something happened and I gave coronavirus to, at that point, people of higher, what is it when they get eligibility for COVID? What's the English word for that?
Risk category or something?
Higher risk, yes,
yeah.
Not eligibility, yes, higher risk. That would forever be on a weight and on my shoulders, and that was all I was thinking about, was giving something over to them. So I made the choice to just be like, I'm just going to go to Hobart. I think it might be safer. And here I am 10 months later. and we've been very fortunate down here in Tasmania. But hey, that energy at first was just worry. It was, I've been everywhere. This virus is very serious. And I think it was a lot of caution at first. But we were kind of living in our own little coronavirus-free bubble. As much as we were reading everything on, on news feeds, we were in our own little touring bubble, just seeing the same 15 people for the last couple of weeks of our lives. But the energy was a bit difficult, but we all found something new this year in that season, hey?
And I think that's what I want to ask both of you about, because I've had conversations with both of you about what you've discovered this year, or how you've used your time and where creativity has lived inside of that. But I'm going to start, first of all, just to Naarah, I'd love to hear a little bit. We were talking the other day, Jared, who can't be with us today, Jared has come on board at the Australian Musical Theatre Festival on board of our program advisory group. So just to really assist with our, what we're programming and how we are always working towards being inclusive and give us a sense of belonging and, diversity for everyone who has a love of musical theatre, and then hopefully all those who even don't have a love of musical theatre that we can convert. But I'm interested, so we've been having some conversations, both of you, about what the Australian Musical Theatre Festival might look like next year. Naarah, I'd like to just give that some context a little bit to just, we had a conversation a while back and you were telling me that Hobart isn't actually your home. So where are you from?
So I've grown up in Hobart. I'm very lucky to have grown up down here and spent a lot of my years growing up here, and I was involved in a very unique and incredible musical theatre and arts culture in Hobart, as you know and love, Tyran. But I'm from the top of Western Australia in the Kimberleys, in the East Kimberley, in a little town called Wyndham. So yeah, that was where my parents were from and made the big move 20-something years ago when they couldn't conceive. And here I am all these years later. There's an incredible doctor down here named Dr. Bill Watkins, and Dad was putting a needle in Mum's lower back every day for a year, and here I am. So it's a bit of a wonder story, but and also my little sister Ella as well. So they were very fortunate to have 2 kids. But yeah, we're moving back now. Mum and Dad booked a flight. They're driving back on the 15th of December, and I booked a flight today, going back on the 22nd of December, which is great. Going back for a season to retouch. It's been a rough year, so it's important, I think, to just rejuvenate for whatever 2021 is going to be. And I think family, culture, and being on country again, and just those 2 words, on country, mean so much to anyone who is of Indigenous or First Nation. That's a big thing. So I'm super excited for that to happen, and to go back only next month. So yeah, that's where I'm from. We've gone back heaps over my lifetime.
And I apologise, when I said Hobart's not your home, of course you've spent most of your time in Hobart. What I meant is not your birthplace. You have a history in another place that feels like home as well. So you've sort of almost got these 2 homes. When you go back, what is the sense of like what music theatre is? Like when you go back up there, how do you explain what you do? Is it foreign, or is it something that has obvious connections in it?
I don't think it's foreign at all. I think it's music theatre at its rawest. It's the stories. I think it's, the sharing of what stories mean to us. Maybe it's a guitar and a circle and a campfire, and being like, oh, you do a song, or a bit of spoken word. I think spoken word and poetry is really important to me and my family back up there. And that's monologues to us. That's the the dialogue. It's the stories that we're telling in theatre is, it's at its rawest form, I think, back up in the Kimberley for me. And I think that's really, what I'm really excited to be, and just have a guitar, sing a song, and sing heaps of them, and share and learn, and a lot of country music. But that's what it's about.
Yeehaw! I'm all about that.
That's awesome. And Brittanie, I'm going to jump to you and ask you, what is your country? What is on country for you? Where does that exist, and what is that relationship like?
Sure. So I grew up on Darug land, but Jagun, homeland, country is up in Urunga. So that's Gumbangir country. So yeah, the language is really interesting. Jagun means country or your homeland, and Wajar means ground. So my Wajar is Darug and my Jagun is Yaranga.
And you were telling me the other day, are you at the moment going through an inquiry and a process of kind of connecting with language, traditional language there? Is that right? What does that mean to you?
It's pretty massive because in my particular family, I'm the first generation within my grandma and my great-grandma to really take it back on, because it was something they weren't allowed to speak growing up because they were really scared the kids would be taken. So yeah, it's pretty empowering, and I have always been curious and I've always wanted to learn it, but it seemed like such a mammoth task. Like, where do you start? And also, although there's great language centres, I'm learning with Murubai Language Centre up on Nambucca Heads, but I'm not on country. What does that look like? But during COVID, they've started up online classes, which has been really fantastic. And I think the thing that really inspired me to do it, when we were doing the Sapphires, Naarah, Tony Briggs's family have a Yorta Yorta song, and we were singing that song in language. And I got chills every time we sang it. We're singing massive rock pop songs throughout the whole show, and it was awesome and fantastic, but nothing compared to singing in language. It felt so empowering. And I'm thinking the whole time, why do we not have this in Gumbaynggirr? And why am I not a part of this? I'm waiting for a voice. I'm waiting for somebody to stand up and do it for me. And then I finally realised at the ripe old age of 27, that's bloody well me, isn't it? So it's been really lovely. Language and music, it's got a beautiful affinity. What Naarah was saying about storytelling, traditional storytelling, it is inherently theatrical. So when we're talking about how do we incorporate culture into musical theatre, mate, it's made for it. Don't even worry. Sit back. It'll work.
Amazing. It's been so lovely hearing you talk when, in the past couple of weeks we've had the occasional moment to actually talk and hear about what this is meaning to you and the journey you're on around that, and that's possible to connect in this way and to keep language alive. It's fantastic. I wanted to ask Naarah, how did you get into music theatre in Tasmania? How did that journey occur for you?
I don't even know. Obviously, I did somewhere along the line, but I don't know. I just kept doing things I love. Someone told me in high school, when you have to start choosing subjects after you try them all, to just keep doing things that you kind of enjoy rather than feeling like, oh, I better do this because this person's doing this, or I need to do science because science is a good career. A teacher just said, just choose the things you like and it'll all work out. And I was like, that's really simple. And it kind of was. So I just kept choosing the things I liked, which was drama, dancing, singing, hanging out with theatre people. And then once I started working out the people who were into theatre, I was like, this is my crowd. These are my people. And it just kept happening. And look, I don't know how I started, but my mum always says I was singing before I was talking and dancing before I was walking. And that just never really stopped. I was making ballets. I'm not like super ballet trained at all. At like the age of 6, I don't even know, just silly ones for whoever was out the front in my shed, and it just never really stopped. So, but Tasmania's got a really great little arts culture going on down here, and now I've got the Australian Musical Theatre Festival, so it's really cool that people get to come here and see what's going on. But yeah, there's a lot of keen people down here, and you've obviously had lots come through VCA too, which is great. A lot of my friends head over to Whopper, NIDA, things, and go and branch out and see what musical theatre is in the mainland. So yeah, it's great.
And we met, you and I met at the Australian Musical Theatre Festival, and I was just a teacher there and you were singing, and it was very clear. When I saw your headshot come through this week for the promo, just the joy in that, in all that you are, and that is so clear when you sing. Do you remember much about the first festival? Do you what was
that like? Yeah. Look, I just saw musical theatre and I was like, I'm going. I just was like, oh, I'm just clearing my schedule. If I clear my schedule for something, it's a big deal. Very high prioritized person with my calendar, a bit like you, Tyran, running from thing to thing all the time. But yeah, look, I was just like, musical theatre. I want to go. I want to do it. It's Launceston. Like, it'd be silly of me not to do it. So I went for a couple of days, and it was just all about meeting people for me, getting amongst people that did the same thing as me, learning from them. Meeting people in Launceston, which I wanted to be more involved with if I could. It's not that far away, really. So, yeah, and, meeting you was incredible. I met Chris Nolan, who's now my singing teacher. He's an incredible guy and helps me so much with all the little things that we all need help with, especially this year. We're like, how do you sing? Do I know how to sing? I just haven't sung for a month. I've forgotten how to sing. Okay, what's the belt?
Yeah.
So it was all about connections and just a lot of fun sharing in the thing we all love, which I think, at its core was what the festival is about.
Yeah, and I noticed the video that we're going to watch of you singing later on before we leave today was directed or put together in some way with Jack Lark, who I also met at the festival. And I think that was also just a great thing about the festival, is genuinely connecting. And, I've kept in touch with Jack and, that pool of young directors that was so keen. And at one point, Jack was going to come and assist me on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And, it's one of the great things about the festival is that connection. Can I ask you, Naarah, with this year, with so much going on this year and I guess particularly in response to some of our interrogation of some of the kind of cultural institutions in this country and what they've stood for, has come a whole bunch of initiatives around diversity. And I know that you were part of the top 30 for the AOC initiative, and I just wondered if you might tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, what a year, hey? I think, obviously, this was all just a huge roll-on from Black Lives Matter. A year ago, I posted about, like yesterday, I think it was, I posted about an Aboriginal death in Alice Springs, and I got in the little community of Yuendamu, and I got the Facebook 1 year later, and it had 19 likes, and I was looking at it, and I was like, wow, I wonder what if I posted that today, what that would have. And I think that from this year and this momentum of such a sad event of Black Lives Matters and what's happened since, just the awareness and people are talking, which is great. Like, we have Band-Aids now in more than one color. Like, there's the little things and there's also the huger things. And one of those huger things definitely was the AOC initiative. And this is just an incredible, a bit of a kickback from the Rob Guest Scholarship. But it was just this incredible empowerment to be involved with something which is just empowering people of colour, culturally and linguistically diverse people in theatre. And, obviously a lot of issues that have been faced in the theatre industry of yesterday, and this is the theatre industry of tomorrow. And it was just so empowering to be a part of that and to see all these incredible people doing all these things around Australia. And I was like, yeah, these are great voices that, need to be amplified, and the world's listening now, and I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Yeah, and to be held up for so many people who might not have seen themselves seen possibilities for themselves to get on stage in main stage music theatre, to be celebrated in that way, and therefore not thought they were welcome. And, I think that is just, there's so much that we've learned. And I also think it's been an interesting year because everyone in our profession has had some kind of experience of being slightly othered, because the world went inwards and the government were not particularly interested in the arts. And it did feel quite, what is that like to feel like on the edge and to be not important? And it's interesting for everyone to kind of have that experience and sit in that together. And these initiatives remind us that people sit in that all the time, and the cultural shifts that need to occur to celebrate people of colour, and to remind people what is possible, and to create a music theatre, particularly music theatre, that has more than just a narrow point of view in terms of its writing, and certainly something I'm very passionate about. I wanted to jump to Brittanie because we're going to hear a song soon. And Brittanie, I want to kind of lead into that by acknowledging first that you were once my student, although I actually find that that's not how you occur for me. That's really not how that feels for me. But
I was that naughty.
I just can't. I feel like I learn from you. So I'm like, oh, okay. But that's the nature of all teaching, isn't it? That your students teach you so much. But I wanted to ask you, about what the experience was like auditioning for drama school. So we met at Naarah when I was at Naarah, and if you had any thoughts, because I know a lot of young people tune into these to kind of find out what are your things about auditions, what do you sing, what do you all that. Do you have any thoughts on do you remember the audition to get into drama school, and do you have any thoughts of what makes a good audition?
So many thoughts, darling, so many thoughts. Look, it's really intimidating, especially if you're going into a really big institution. And I hadn't had much success in the past. I've always found that I'm not like a commercial musical theatre performer, and neither is that something that I want to be solely in, I suppose. So it's really tricky because these institutions are looking for people who'll have the opportunity to work and will work often to really hold up their name, which makes a lot of sense. But I just think in Australia, we don't quite know what our version of musical theatre is yet. I think that theatre in England is quite journalistic. Theatre in America is very escapist, and theatre in Australia is adaptation. We haven't really found our own thing yet. And that really correlates with the way that we bring on new students in these institutions. So I guess what I would say is be yourself. Don't shy away from what makes you you. I mean, I remember for my Naarah audition for you, Tyran, I walked in and did the Big Boo Boo, and I sang on my own from Les Mis, which is just, you don't do that. You don't do a song that everybody knows and will compare you to, but effort, I sing that song really well. And I was like, I'm going to do what makes me feel good and really show who I am as a storyteller, or at least my understanding of who I am at this point in time. And boy, has it changed since graduating in 2016, only a few years ago. But I'm a very different performer to the one I was back then. But yeah, I think just be true to yourself, really stick to your strengths and do what you enjoy. It shines through. You were saying that Naarah, it's so obvious that she loves what she does, and she's a bright ball of sunshine every time she performs, and when she's not as well. So I think go in with that energy, go in being yourself, because theatre's changing, and I'm certainly not writing stuff that is cookie cutter because I've got no interest in it. It's not what I want to watch. So I'm writing stuff for the oddballs, because that's who we all are in musical theatre. We're the oddballs.
Yeah, we are. And I am going to get onto your writing, definitely. It's funny, I remember on my own, and I remember being unable to be involved in conversations about you because I said, I love her voice so much. It affects me in such a place that I don't even know if I can be, if I can actually look at anything else. It just, your voice, I remember very clearly going, oh, on my own, sure, no problem. But what you brought to it, and I think that's our jobs, is to bring stuff, even if the musical exists, it's been sung by a whole bunch of people, is to bring ourselves to it in a way. And you certainly could do that before you went to Naarah. And it's interesting to say how much you've changed since, because I think any of these institutions are just, my old teacher at WAPA used to go, it's just the nursery. It's just the nursery. It's kind of where it starts, and then you become your own person and navigate your response to art around that. And one of the first steps around that was to be in a production of Big Fish. Now, pretend I'm not in the room for a moment, and because I directed it, but pretend I'm not in the room, and tell us about that. That was at the Hayes Theatre. What was that experience like? And kind of was that when the Hayes was pretty young, and the whole idea of independent music theatre was relatively new. So what was that like, Brittanie?
Thank God for indie theatre. That's all I'm going to say. We need it in this country, and especially for those of us that are new and coming out. It was just brilliant. It was amazing and kind of awe-inspiring to work with a bunch of people who are just so experienced, who I've idolized and I've watched on stage for so long. I mean, Katrina Redelick, I mean, oh, come on. Amazing. Philip Lowe, all these people that I can name drop now and say I've worked with. No, it was just amazing. You learn so much in the room, and it's interesting what you say, that an institution is the nursery, a really valuable nursery. Don't get me wrong. It teaches you so much, and it's so focused on that particular aspect of your artistry. You're not an artist until you start working. You're just not. And that sounds like the biggest ball of wank I've ever said in my life, but it's true. You know, you have to figure out what you like and what you don't like, why you don't like it. You need to be specific and articulate it. And at uni, you're just learning how to sound good. And it's strangely competitive, and although we had a really supportive cohort, which is so lovely, but yeah, once you get into the real world, rehearsal etiquette is a thing. You know, practice that at uni when you're there, so that you go in and you're professional and you conduct yourself in a manner that is professional. And yeah, it was great. It was great to put everything to use.
Yeah, and it was wonderful. It was one of those great moments. You talk about the people, you know, the seasoned professionals in it, but it's always wonderful to have a mix. I know when I speak to my friends who are directors, Jason Langley, Sean Rennie, those people, we always talk about, we always want one, we're always, in every cast, we want to give one person their break, one person in there, so that there is that it feeds each other. And talking about rehearsal protocol and all of that, during Big Fish, I tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey, listen, I'm directing a show in Melbourne and I can't find the female lead. It was very much an ensemble show of 4, but there was a specific song that the piece sort of rested on in terms of the kind of emotional heart of the story. And I tapped you on the shoulder and I said, would you mind having a listen to this song, and if you like it, maybe we can have a sing through at some point. And I remember, do you remember the audition kept getting moved because we kept getting behind with Big Fish, and we kept going, oh, we'll do it tomorrow. I'm so sorry, we didn't get a chance. We'll do it tomorrow. And then you said, I'd really like to just take the moment and do it. And we went into a little sort of, it was almost like a church in the school that we were rehearsing in, and you sang the song, and it was very, very clear that you were going to play that role. And I always remember that there was a review that came out that said, because I think, and I'm going to get you to set this song up that we're going to hear in a moment, but it's a really tricky song to approach because it is the emotional heart of the story. And I remember a review saying, if you see one moment on stage this year, it's this moment. I remember it really clearly because I remember thinking, oh, that person knows how hard it is to do what Brittanie has just done. And I remember your research and preparation for that audition was, the kind of stuff that as a director you go, that's just magic. So I have 2 questions. First of all, I want to ask you, how did you approach that? Because the song, for everyone out there, and just a trigger warning, it is about 9/11, this song. And it's about a loss in 9/11. But how do you approach that as someone who is in the early 20s in Sydney? What was your approach to this song?
I think it's the same with everything. I tend to tap into vulnerability quite easily through music. That I find music really helpful to be able to just let go, and then I don't have to have a wall up. So that's always useful. But in terms of preparation, yeah, it was the same with anything. How does this human work? What makes them tick? Why did they do what they do? And what was that experience? I think it's the coolest thing about theatre and storytelling, and it's why I'm so drawn to it. You really have to force an audience and your cast to slip into the shoes of another person. You are forced to be empathetic for however long that show goes for. And so that's all you do. You approach it with empathy. And so, of course, I had to go back and try and understand 9/11 and what it was like to be somebody who lost a person in 9/11, which is a huge and mammoth experience. I was listening to some pretty horrific recordings of the last calls that they were making to emergency in the building, because, that's noted in the song. The last loved the last notes and messages to their loved ones as well. How amazing that you know that something terrible is going to happen, and the last thing you must do is tell your loved one that you care for them and how much you love them, and you're sorry that you can't be there to see the rest of your lives lived out together. So you've got to be careful not to go too dark with it, but it's important to understand.
What's interesting about the song, and I'm just give it some context so that people who are watching it know what this is, but is that it is ultimately a song of positivity, which is always, as an actor, what we have to find. It's just that there's this huge obstacle in the way. So I'm wondering, Brittanie, if you can just tell us, who is she singing to? This is from Ordinary Days, the Adam Guan musical. It's very much about four people who are disconnected, connecting across New York City. And this is a significant moment around that. So, Brittanie, who is she talking to, and who's Jason, and who is the other man? What is going on with this?
Great. So at this point, this is kind of our 11 o'clock number. She's broken up with Jason. Jason really wants to pursue solidifying their relationship. He wants to get married. He's proposed to her in the middle of a fight. He's a bit of a puppy dog, you know. He just wants to be with her, and she's like, whoa, shut down. She's been hesitant the entire relationship, and we don't know why. We just think she's callous. And then they go away, and there's this beautiful moment in the show where coloured paper pamphlets fly down and rain from the sky, and it triggers something in her. And obviously she's brought back to 9/11, and she relives the moment and comes to a completely different conclusion, as you'll hear in the song. But this is her meeting back up with Jason and saying, we need to talk. I need to tell you why I'm hesitant, and I need you to understand why I've resisted this relationship for so long.
Yeah, and this is the song. It's called I'll Be Here, from Ordinary Days, and it is that moment that Brittanie has just set up so well. It's very much, this was recorded in a recording studio before we had any rehearsals, but inherent in even just standing behind a microphone is not only your quite remarkable voice, but your storytelling and how important that is. So here is I'll Be Here.
We met, of all places, in front of Christie's, some freakishly cold winter's day. I had on several unflattering layers of wool. He slipped on the ice with his grocery bags full. So I rescued some Fruit Loops he dropped by the curb, and he made some remark, and then my smile was superb. And I thought that was sweet, and I started to go, and he said, hey, what you doing tomorrow? Because I'll be here at the corner of Bleecker and Mercer tomorrow at 7. If you want to meet up, I'll be waiting right here. And in case there are two fellas waiting for you, my name's John. He waved, and then he was gone. Needless to say, I went back there to meet him, mostly to see if he'd show. And there he was, out in the cold, with his jacket pulled tight. He took me to dinner and kissed me goodnight. The next week we went to this terrible play, and the week after that, drank hot chocolate all day. And suddenly, 8 or 9 months had flown by when he said, hey, what you doing the rest of your life? Because I'll be here, right beside you, as long as you want me to be. There's no question, there is nothing I've wanted so much in my life. This might sound immature, but I'm totally sure you're the one. And we had just begun. We got hitched in September, our favorite month, with a rock band he had to stop into his office that morning, and so I went walking uptown to this bakery I know. When I heard in the street what I thought was a joke, till I noticed the sirens and saw all the smoke. So I'm running back home with this feeling of dread, to the voicemail he left with the last words he said. Sorry, I don't mean to ruin your evening by bringing up all of this stuff. You're probably wondering why I even called you tonight. The day something happened that spooked me, all right. I saw this storm cloud of papers fall down from the sky, and I thought of that day, and I started to cry. When as sure as I breathe, I heard John clear as day saying, hey, you're allowed to move on. It's okay, because I'll be here, even if you decide to get rid of my favorite sweater. If you want to go out on my birthday this year, instead of sitting at home letting all of life's moments pass by, you don't have to cry, because I'll be here when you start going back to the places we went to together. When you take off my ring and you let yourself smile, when you meet someone handsome and patient and true, when he says that he wants to be married to you, when you call him one night and he meets you downtown, when you finally answer him yes. Yes, Jason, I will marry you. I will give you my heart. Oh, it has taken so long. I'm ready to start. Right now, John's whispering congrats in my ear, 'cause I finally let myself tell you that I will be here.
How good's Stephanie, though? I mean, she'd make anybody sound good.
Yes, absolutely. And also I noticed Mark Taylor in the background who put that together, and we got permission from Natasha from Pursued by a Bear. It was a beautiful experience to be involved in that. And I remember every time you did it going, I have to go for a little walk. I'll be back in a second. It was beautiful. Thank you, Brittanie. That was so lovely. Naarah, I want to jump over to you for a moment. And I just wanted to find out, I wanted to start with you about, you know, what 2020 has ended up looking like for you, and what do you do as a creative person when you can't perform in the same way? What have you done with that creative energy? What has that been like for you?
Yeah. Well, I think what Brittanie said before, I think that's kind of really accurate about me in a way, that I am really optimistic. The glass is this is a half full glass. There's space for more water in that. Like, I'm optimistic. Like, I want to see the silver linings and the positive and stuff. And I've always just been full of joy. And I think that's been actually really hard for me this year to admit that I just haven't been full of joy. I've had a really rough year this year, and the more it goes on, the more I think it's important to talk about it and to say, hey, Naarah's not Naarah right now. And that's been something that I've had to go along the journey of myself and what I am as a creative. When I don't create anymore, there was a huge phase of just not creating. And I think my body, my voice, my acting, my sense of creativity, forgetting it's what I do, which is, you know, a real thing, which Chris has been talking a lot to me this year about. But yeah, it was a lot of energy, boom. And some creatives had that, and some creatives had this. They, as Brittanie mentioned, they had that space to do the things that they hadn't done for ages, and it was incredible. And it was, I've witnessed so many creatives have that space, and that wasn't me. And that's okay. I think now it's taking me a little while to get to this point to be like, oh, I've had a really rough year. And, you know, learning to create when I don't really know how to, and or have anything to do. It's been a hard energy to take on board.
Wonderful, Naarah, and one of the great things about this experience, and I always say it's a privilege to have lived through a pandemic. Many people didn't get the choice, and, you know, like, we're still here and we're still having these conversations and working out what you do with this. It is interesting to just, and it's kind of uplifting to hear that everyone, it's a leveling when you know that everybody goes through these things, you know, that you don't, it doesn't have to look a particular way. And as you say, some creatives went that way and some creatives didn't, and that's okay. You know, I was at a restaurant just 2 nights ago, and the person serving me was a VCA grad, and they didn't want me to know it was them. They were in a mask, and later I kind of intercepted the person and went, "Hey, how are you?" And I was like, "It's okay. We all, like, it's enough to have got out of bed this year." You know, I think anything else is a bonus. But you have been creative, and that will lead us into the next song. And sometimes I find that really interesting as well. You know, resilience is something that we learn, and this year has been interesting in navigating where we put resilience and where creativity and how they live next to each other. I just wanted to point out that if there are people out there who would like to ask a question, please feel free to send through questions. I've got more. What's wrong, Brittanie? What's wrong? It's not going to be prying into your personal life. Like, what could they possibly ask?
Oh, Tyran, I don't have one. Welcome to 2020.
But if there are questions, please. I mean, one of the wonderful things is to give everyone access to performers and to have these conversations. And I think that was beautiful, Naarah, just to acknowledge that it's been a tough year, and out of that has still come music, whatever its cost there have been, and you're gonna sing us out of this program in 10 minutes time or so. I am very aware, I really don't want to jump off before asking about new writing. And Brittanie, you mentioned at one point, just so everybody knows, somewhere in the middle of this year, Brittanie wrote to me and said, "Oh, look, I was in some kind of creative development, and I thought, how hard can it be? So I wrote a play. Do you want to have a look at it?" And I was like, oh my God, like, it was a great play, which has since had a development at Belvoir Street, not too shabby. And Brittanie, you're starting to, you're finding a voice as a writer, which is really exciting. And as you know, it's a great hope of mine that we're part of that and we support that at the Australian Musical Theatre Festival, because the clue is in the title, Australian Musical Theatre Festival. We want to celebrate Australian musical theatre as much as all the music that we love. I always say I love everything from Jerome Kern right up to Lin-Manuel Miranda and everything in between. But it's so exciting to hear that you are writing. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Brittanie, which is a lot of people probably don't know this, is that you were part of the Muriel's Wedding workshop. So when we're talking about new writing, you were there in a really significant role. I just want to find out, like, it was a role that you didn't end up playing. And I know that we've talked about this. Just what do you do with your affection about something that you create that you then pass on? What was your relationship with Muriel's Wedding when you were in that room with that wonderful team, and then you show up to watch it all that time later? What do you do with that?
Well, you're really excited to watch your friends do it, for starters. But I will say that of my career, I do a lot of workshops. So it was hard the first couple of times, but also really exciting to watch your contributions happen on stage and to be a part of a development. And it really fostered a love of new work for me. I think I've worked on over 20 new works in some capacity in the last 4 years, probably more. And I just love it. I lap it up. And so without all of that, and if I'd just gotten roles, then I wouldn't be where I am today. And it's hard to roll with the punches as they come, especially just graduating. Listening to Naarah chat then, I'm thinking, yeah, of course. Just getting out of uni, getting your first gig or not getting your first gig, you're ready to burst into the scene of the industry, and for a global pandemic to happen, or for you to half get a job at a workshop but not actually, get the actual role. I mean, it's tricky, but the more I am on the other side of the creative table, the more I'm like, it's not personal. It's okay, kid. There's 1,000 reasons. So you get on with it, and you're not there for the fame or the fortune, because guess what, kids? You don't make a lot of money from theatre, so it's okay. It's all right to contribute and then step back. And I think that was a really good first gig and first lesson for me. So, yeah, it was really valuable, and I'm glad it's brought me to doing all these other workshops and now writing, because I just finally feel like I've found that gap that I was missing. I still love acting and I love singing. It's such a release for me and such an important part of the storytelling that I like to do. But I didn't know what I was missing. And now I found it, and I'm so excited. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, awesome. And I mean, it's important to note also that sometimes people are cast in workshops who are never going to play the role, and you knew even while you were playing that role that you were the wrong height, and they made it was not a secret that your journey had parameters around it, and then you pass it on. Naarah, do you write? Is this something that you do? Do you write music? Or I know that you work in a lot of styles. Do you write yourself?
Yeah, I do. I think it was one of my first understandings of music, what music meant to me. I just was like, I've been journal writing since a long time ago. I think it was 2010 or 2009. It was my last year of 2009. I've been journal writing, and I think it got to a point a couple of years later. I was like, why not just journal write? Take my journal and put it to some music. I've been a piano player all my life. That was kind of just where it was sitting for me, and I was like, why not just hum a tune to this? And I just started putting my journal to song and music. And sometimes it was spoken word, sometimes it was different. These days I'm writing a lot for kids, which has been great, working with a lot of schools. I've just wrote my own Christmas carol for the suburb I live in, Glenorchy, with a lot of great young kids. So it's changed a lot over the years. I want to write something next year for a festival down here, not this festival. But it's changed. But I love writing. And, that's why I guess I love Carole King and have grown up with that. And singer-songwriters and, stories from the person, them saying, I think is so powerful. Like there's a few videos I watch of Jason Robert Brown singing his own songs. And I'm just like, this is cool. It's something really unique watching the person who wrote the song knows every underlying meaning do that. So I think it's been something that, and this year I have finally found a bit more time to do. My debut single will come out pretty soon actually too, so which is really exciting. That's something which is, I applied for the grant in whatever it was, March, and I haven't done really much towards it because of the year, but it's going to happen soon because we're on this now.
Yes.
And so we can share it and celebrate it, and also have, of course, interested for both of you to contribute however we can work that inside of the Australian Musical Theatre Festival. I've just seen the questions in the chat. I'm like, I was on the wrong thing. So now I'm like, I've got 3 minutes to talk through all these questions. I might quickly jump to Denise Gibson, who says, has a question here. Naarah, can you tell us about Kimberly Girl, please? Love that song with you and your grandfather. Tell us about that.
Hello. I know Denise. Hello, Denise. That song, so my grandfather is my everything. My grandpa, he's my grandfather, but he's my grandpa on my mum's side, so my Aboriginal side. He's an incredible man, done so much for Indigenous Australia and quite political stuff and fighting for Indigenous rights. He's actually OAM, Order of Australia, as well for the stuff he's done. So he's done heaps, and he's wrote a lot of books, a lot of poetry. And me growing up with poetry, I was like, I love poetry. Let's put it to song. So that's exactly what I did. He wrote a song about my grandmother, his wife. and it's beautiful. It's called Kimberly Girl, and it's about her life and her struggle and her incredible story. And I decided to put that to music. And yeah.
Beautiful story. We need to get you back on to hear that. We need to hear that as well. It's not what we're going to end with today, but that sounds amazing. And certainly it's always, like you're saying about Jason Robert Brown, when people are singing stuff they've written or stuff that comes from them, it's really, really unique. That sounds amazing. There's one that's come through the website that says, Brittanie, I know you've done Shakespeare. Is that terrifying?
Yes, it is. I've worked with Sport for Jove in Sydney a few times, and one of our shows, well, the first introduction I had to Shakespeare or performing it was Rose Riot, so War of the Roses, and that was 8 Shakespeare shows, I'm pretty sure, from Richard II, Henry IV, 5th, 6th, which is 3 shows in itself, and then Richard III. And what an introduction it was. And again, being thrown in the deep end with people who are much better than you are, who are more skilled, more experienced, and that's the way to learn, to be the worst person in the room. But just try not to let anybody know that. But it was great. And I think musical theatre performers, I think stop calling yourself that and maybe branch out as much as you can, and know that your ability with music and your skill and that skill set really helps you with Shakespeare and poetry and understanding language and the rhythm of it. So branch out, babes, branch out. It's Australia. We gotta do more than one thing.
Absolutely. And it's part of the joy of being in the industry is that, we have to, and why would you not want to? I'm going to jump into, by the way, I love Sport for Jove. They're one of my favourite theatre companies. I once worked with them and dried on stage and paraphrased in iambic pentameter for quite some time. People still bring that up. Of course, that's the thing. Is if you get your lines in Shakespeare, the whole audience knows it. They all know it. So you go, oh,
but that's an amazing skill to be able to improvise Shakespeare. Like, wow, I could never do that.
It made a lot of sense, but it certainly fit the meter. We have to wrap up in a moment, and I don't want to, but this might lead us into this next song. There's a question here from a different Denise Patrick, saying, what are your dream roles in music theatre? So I might go to Brittanie first, and then I think your answer, Naarah, may well lead us into the final song. Brittanie?
Something that's Australian, something that's new, and an indigenous musical theatre role in language.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to being there on opening night. Naarah, do you have a favourite a dream role in music theatre?
Yeah, well, aside from exactly what Brittanie said, that's obviously a big thing, which I'd love to do. It is, I've always had the dream role, and I've grown up with singer-songwriters, a lot of gospel music, a lot of African-American music, and it was singer-songwriter stuff, and it was Carole King. I grew up with listening to her album Tapestry, which is just an album full of heart and soul and journals in song, which I can, that's what I love. And once I heard about years and years before it actually opened, or maybe not years, but a few years before it opened, I was just obsessed with the idea of Beautiful. I loved the idea of this different, like, kind of jukebox kind of musical where you actually go through someone's life and everything that actually happened and these stories to fit within a true story, I think was incredible. So I was always really excited, seeing someone play and sing. I have big curly messy hair like Carole King. It was kind of just like, I just want to be her. So I was obsessed with the musical from the start, and it was just something I always listened to. So when it got turned into a musical, I was like, this is me. This is me.
Let's hope that Michael Castle is tuning into this so that when we get the revival happening, we can come and see you playing Carole King. In the meantime, let's get a little snippet of what it might be like with this beautiful song, Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?
a lasting treasure, or just a moment's pleasure. Tonight the light of love is in your eyes, but will you love me tomorrow? Tonight with words unspoken, you say that I'm the only one, but will my heart be broken when the night meets the morning sun? I'd like to know that your love is a love I can be sure of. So tell me now, and I won't ask again. Will you still love me tomorrow? Will you still love me
Oh, just beautiful yet again. What a gorgeous way to finish our program today. Thank you so much, Naarah. I mean, it is the way you interpret music that makes it music theatre, and it's beautiful, whether it's written as a 60s pop song or what we heard from Brittanie today, a contemporary music theatre piece. It's the way that you approach it and tell stories that's so important, and both of you are just so wonderful at sharing yourselves through song. We're so appreciative. We really look forward to welcoming you both to the Australian Musical Theatre Festival next year. I know that we've been talking about plotting lots of things, which is really fantastic. Thank you both. Thank you everyone for tuning in as well. I'm going to leave you now and look forward to welcoming you next week, where we've only got 2 more of these before a break. So we can run around and get the festival actually sorted and ready to announce. But next week we will have a really wonderful guest who I'm very, very excited about welcoming, the amazing Callum Francis, star of Kinky Boots all over the world, the West End and Broadway. We can't wait to see him, and we can't wait to see you. Thank you so much, ladies. Just beautiful to see you. Mwah. Bye.
Yada yada.